hours of this stuff. It's like, I get it, Nephilim, end of the world, leave me alone, let me go home, thank you, please. So, look, I got 102 slides to do in an hour. It's never going to happen, right? I'm going to ask you, I'm going to show some stuff which is my intellectual property. And I don't want any cell phone pictures when I tell you not to take them. We're going to turn the video off because this will be an On the Trail 2. And no one has seen these pictures. You're the first people. So, yeah, but you got to promise me no cell phones, no little like, oh my gosh, you'll never see this. You know, click, it's on Facebook and click, 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 right? No, we don't want that. And the Lord will rebuke you, trust me, if you try to sneak one in. What's that, Father? Oh, okay. So let me just get into this. I'd love to sit here and do some stand-up, but I don't have time, and we're all exhausted, right? But let's remove this right now. This is On the Trail of a Nephilim. Basically, I'm in the field a lot. And what I mean by that is I've got stacks of books at home. I've done a lot of research, but there comes a time when I've left the books. What I mean by that is they're all based on someone else going to a site, looking at something, and now I'm the guy who's going to the sites and looking at things. And some of these sites are very old, as you'll see. Well, hundreds of years, thousands of years old. And the trail grows very dim and very old and very faint. But there's still nuggets to be found there. And that's what's so intriguing about this. So that's a skull from Peru. We'll show that a little bit later. These are more elongated skulls found in Peru. An anthropologist student came up to me this morning, and she was sort of beside herself going, you know, my anthropology teacher is just trying to tell us that all this is not really true and it's not real, and that, guess what she said? That the lack of parietal suture was done post-mortem. I just went, oh yeah, sure, right. Tell me another one, pal. And there's a reason for this, and we'll talk about that as time goes on. This goes up against the Darwinian paradigm, which is sacrosanct, both in the scientific community and in academia. The Darwinian paradigm is what God is dead and everything we just evolved. There is no law, there is no right or wrong, there's only moral relativism. That led to eugenics and the Nazis, and we could go down that rabbit trail. And I promise you, because I have so much material, no rabbit trails tonight, and no funny stuff either, okay? Let's get serious here, pal. Okay, the Book of Enoch. Brian Godawa went over that. I can skip that, right? Good, great. Nephilim 101, Doug Hamp and everybody else talked about that. I can skip that, right? Genesis 6. How many people know what I'm talking about, right? Cool. Woohoo! Jude. The angels that did not keep their positions of authority but abandoned their proper dwelling, blah, blah, blah. Sodom and Gomorrah, right? Got it. Everybody knows what I'm talking about, right? Raise your hand. Skip it. Cool. Another incursion, the 10 spies. What did they encounter? The Nephilim were in the land, weren't they? The Nephilitos were there, in Spanish, of course. My friends, please. And what's bizarre about this, and look, some of my colleagues, we disagree on this. There's only one incursion. I think there's a gazillion incursions. I think the fallen one has been doing this, messing with the genome over and over and over again. He's trying to create man in his own image. We agree to disagree. The bottom line is they're there. We agree on that. The Nephilim are in the land. And guess what? The mandate to Joshua and Caleb is to wipe them all out. And I want to just touch on this real quick, because many people, especially students, when they get into college, the professor goes, how many people are Christians? And, you know, 2 kids raise their hand because everybody else isn't stupid enough to raise their hand. You know, I'm not going to raise my hand. Well, do you believe God's a good God? Oh, yes, yes, professor. Do you believe that God is holy? Oh, yes. Do you believe that God is a respecter of no persons, like the Bible says? Oh, absolutely. Well, then why would God destroy everybody in the promised land? And the kid got no answer. Ooh. And he looks like a fool. But if he knows about the Nephilim, he can hoist the professor on his own petard, as it were, and let him squirm in front of the class. Well, professor, are you aware that the mandate was because these creatures were hybrid creatures known as the Nephilim, and they were never supposed to be here in the first place? They are the hybrid creature of, or I should say the progeny of fallen angelic beings and the women of earth, hybrid being Nephilim. That's why the judgment is always, you know, this new movie Noah, already rabbit trail, I'll make it real quick. The new movie Noah, I haven't seen it yet. I talked to Brian about it, who read earlier scripts. Isn't it interesting that they're making a movie about Noah just as we're getting all this stuff out? Don't you find that just sort of coincidental? Not afraid to say the word coincidence, right? I mean, isn't it weird that the Noah thing comes out? And guess what? There'll probably be nothing about the Nephilim in there, right? And that's the whole reason for the story. Without the Nephilim, why are you killing, why are you destroying everybody in the world? Everyone was corrupted. It was a huge deal. And I don't have time to get into that, so let's move on. The Nephilim were on the earth and also afterwards. This is the Chongo's skull that came out of Chongos. You can see the right here. It says Chongos. For those of you who are going to the Nephilim Skull Tour, gee, that sounds like fun, LA. The Nephilim Skull Tour, we are leading, about 10 people have signed up so far. It's like $3,000 for 10 days, plus airfare. And it's like we go down to Paracas and all these different places in Peru, and you can walk to Chongo's graveyard, where you can see the remains of some stuff. I mean, I was walking through there about 3 weeks ago, and I looked down, and there's like a shiny white dome. And I go, oh, you got to be kidding me. And I reach down, and I move the sand and pull out an elongated skull. I'm making this up, with only one parietal plate. We have photos of it. We're just kind of going like, where are we? What is this? It's the most desolate place on earth. I believe that the Chongo's necropolis or graveyard holds secrets that we have not yet seen. Rob Skiba's skull, I believe, I haven't vetted this, and I asked Rob where he got it, that could be a replica of this skull, because that's pretty much what the Chongo's skull looked like when we went into the museum to take pictures. This is my photograph at the ICA Museum in Peru, where this guy was. What's interesting is they're all over the place down there. And the Peruvian government just released a book about them, but there still has been no DNA testing on that, except for the DNA testing that was done through Brian Forrester and Lloyd Pye, through Lloyd Pye's genetics, which was done a couple of years ago, which was just released a couple of weeks ago, which went viral. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. In the territory of King Og, king of Bashan, that's how Doug Hamp pronounces it, Og. The rest of us pronounce it Og. We're all wrong. Sorry, Doug. I don't know what it is. Og. So in the territory of Og, king of Bashan, one of the last of the Rephites, which of course is a Nephilim tribe, who reigned in Ashtaroth. And so the bottom line is we have this biblical story, narrative that's constantly going, talking about these creatures, who they were. The Rephaim, the Amorites, the Canaanites, okay? And this is, when you look here, this is where Og dwelt. Why isn't this working? Ooh, hello. That's so weird. Is the battery over? Oh, there it is. Okay. So this is like northern part of Israel, and I'm going to show you a map that we did of it a little bit later, and this is where Og's territory is. You will notice it's very close to Mount Hermon. Mount Hermon is where the 200 watcher angels descended in the time of Jared and started all the mischief. So isn't that interesting? And it was described as the remnant of the giants. Why is the remnant? Why is it? Because they can reproduce only for a certain amount of time, and then the seed becomes, or the genetic tree or chain, however you want to describe it, becomes less powerful and they can't reproduce anymore? And interestingly enough, the geneticist who looked at this, who has its preliminary DNA, stated that, wow, they would not be able to mate with humans. Isn't that interesting? I mean, we'll get into that. So I got to move quickly. So these are the tribes that were in the Levant. And just so in the cosmic chess match, I talk about this. And this is how the Lord seems to work. He allows the fallen one, Satan, to have full reign. Okay, you go ahead. You do your thing. Ever wonder why he hardens Pharaoh's heart? Ever wonder why he allows Israel to be under bondage for so many years? Until the fullness of the Amorites, which I got from Doug Krieger, the fullness of the Amorites comes in. In other words, he allows Satan, the fallen one, to do his thing, right? Ever wonder why the 40 years, that generation passes? Because, get this, he hardens Pharaoh's heart over and over and over again to show the Israelites that he's the real God. This is all in the cosmic chess match. I don't have time to get into it. But that's what he's doing. And so he rescues them over and over and over again. And when he brings them up to Canaan, I mean, he knows they're not going to go in. Oh, we saw the Nephilim there, we can't go in. Ah! You know, and they turn tail and run. That day is called the 9th of Av. It's always been a day of calamity for the Jewish nation ever since that, because there's a curse that the Lord put on the people. The 9th of Av, that's a whole other discussion. Doug Hamp got into that. I talk about it in other presentations, but it's a day of calamity to the Jewish people, and it's always good to know when the 9th of Av is in 2014 or 2013. It's always good to know, so watch Israel. Anyway, all these different tribes, the Canaanites, the Girgashites, the Amorites, the Nephilim, they're all up here. They're all different tribes. The reason why they have different names, I believe, there's different genetic characteristics. For instance, one of them is called the long necks. There's genetic manipulation going on here. Excuse me, I'm fighting this cold, so if I hack a little bit, I ask your forgiveness now. Anyway, so they go in, and this is the only place in the Bible, remember, the reason why the mandate from a loving, holy God is to wipe these people out is because they are not human. They are hybrid beings. There's no grace and mercy ever extended to Nephilim that I'm aware of. The judgment is always the same in the flood, and guess what? When you go to the book of Revelation, what's the judgment there for anyone who takes the mark of the beast? Where do you wind up in? The lake of fire. Why? Because I believe, and Doug Hamp believes this too, it will change. When you take this mark, it will change our DNA, and we will become literally the seed of the serpent. Think about that. That's why the judgment is so severe without an ounce of grace. Now you go, oh, what if they make me take the mark? Pull it out. Refuse it. So there you go. That's easy enough. Let's move on. The theory. But it's in my forehead. The theory is this, that when Joshua and Caleb went into the promised land, all right, and the mandate came out and the Holy Spirit was there, isn't it interesting how God wants this piece of real estate for whatever reason? This is his real estate, and he brings Israel to come in and take the land. But guess who's there? The fallen one. Why is the fallen one there? Because the fallen one knows that this is God's real estate. And he's like running, interference all over the place. So the mandate comes out, the tribes go in, they start to conquer these tribes, and the Nephilim are going, we got to get out of here. So the theory is that some of them flee northward, okay, into Europe and across the Atlantic and settle down into Ohio and spread out. The other part goes into the Mediterranean and then goes across the Atlantic Ocean. I don't have time to get into all this stuff, but I will say this, that we believe that the theory is so far is holding water. Our hypothesis is holding water, that these tribes populated the Americas. And we think that these skulls, and also what we see in the Americas, is proof of that. And also what the Native Americans talk about. When they got here, this stuff was already here, and they had to conquer red-haired giants. The Paiutes had to do it. The Navajo talks about the same thing. Chief Joseph Riverwind, a friend of mine, talks about the Cherokee, talks about tribes in the north doing the same thing. So America's Stonehenge. Something is going on here, all right? A henge is a circle. This is what it looks like. It's in New Hampshire, okay? And it's been dated, carbon dating, at about 4,000 years old. So the question is, this is well before Columbus, folks. Well before Columbus. This is a slab that's about 6 feet by 10 feet. Human remains were found in and around it. They believe it's a sacrificial altar. And this is the work of Kelsey Stone. And I talked a little bit about this last night. There's the henge right there, and here's the line going up. Now, the henge is you saw as part of the rock. That's part of the henge, okay? And next to it is a standing stone. There are standing stones. Summer solstice, winter solstice, equinoxes, lunar events, okay? So Kelsey Stone takes a line from the center of Stonehenge, New Hampshire, and draws it out to the summer standing stone. And he continues that. And he continues it, and he splits the center trilithon in Stonehenge, England. Let's look at that again. There's this beginning of the line, and he continues that line. Remember, he's sighting, this is how he's getting there. He's in the center of the henge, and he sights the summer solstice standing stone, where the longest day of the year begins when the sun crests over the point of the standing stone. And he sights that line on Google Earth and continues it, and much to his astonishment, he winds up splitting the center trilithon in Stonehenge, England. You cannot do that in antiquity. You can only do it in modernity, and that with the help of triangulation with satellites overhead. I've talked to surveyors. You can't do it. Who's the prince of the power of the air? So who do you think's doing this? You only have two choices. It's either the extraterrestrial crowd, ET's doing it, right? Ancient astronaut theory, all those guys that you see on the History Channel, or it's the fallen angelic hosts. And the fact that there's human sacrifice at these sites leads me to believe that it's not, some nice little ET going, greetings from the Pleiades. Okay, this is nefarious stuff. There's the center trilithon. You can see how it's split. So Kelsey Stone decides to extend the line because they believe that the Phoenicians, okay, were responsible for this. So he extends the line, extends the line, extends the line, and he winds up in Beirut. Beirut is the home of the Phoenicians. The Phoenicians are the descendants of the Canaanites, and the Canaanites are a Nephilim tribe. Ding, 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 ding. Okay? So once again, the theory is holding up, isn't it? Now we've got physical evidence of something going on. Of course, the anthropologists, with all due respect to academia, look at this stuff. Well, that's just, I'm not sure what it is, actually. It's very much. You know, and it's like, guys, go out in the field, look at it yourself, look at the evidence. Well, something is going on here. Get rid of what you've been taught, because what you've been taught a lot has been lies. And you hold on to tenaciously because it has to protect the Darwinian theory. Wah. You know? I'm going to get in trouble. I just know I am. Somebody's going to be watching this. We got to get L.A. Marzulli now. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, so there's the line going all the way from Beirut, Lebanon, okay, all the way back. How do you do that? You can't do that. And what we've discovered is all these megalithic sites, megalithic, huge building blocks of stone, right? Megalithic sites, which are all over the planet, they are connected. And we believe it was part of a grid. And that grid in the days of Noah was used to enslave the human race. And that's part of why he flooded everything and blew it all up. But we don't know what the grid was, how it worked. We think that the Great Pyramid was part of that grid, maybe. Some big energy transmitter. These things are not the whole idols. When I was just down in Puma Punku, and you look at these stones of andesite, right, which has a Mohs hardness of 7, and they're very hard, and you think back thousands of years with little bronze chisels going ding, 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 and you see a series of holes in the andesite stone. Precision, and channels and grooves and stuff that we have no idea what it is, because most of the stones have been carted away over the thousands of years. It's like Humpty Dumpty, you'll never put it back together. But it's not an idol place. It's some sort of a machine, and it was wiped out. Guess what? As in the days of Noah, so will be when the Son of Man returns, right? So does this tie into it? You betcha. Was there a grid in the ancient world? Possibly. We really believe, and look, I'm not the first person to come up with this. The New Ages have been banging this drum forever. They believe that there was a grid. Okay, the grid, and so prophecy tells us that it'll be like the days of Noah. If the grid was there in antiquity, is there a grid in modernity? You betcha. We talked a little bit about this last night. NSA, what are they doing? They're spying on us. Is the grid up? Yeah, World Wide Web. We're using it right now. We're streaming live to you via the web, which right now is benevolent and controlled by happy people, but soon will be controlled by the Dark Lord. And he will enslave everybody. You don't think so? It already is when you think about it. It's just all they got to do is flip it. And the whole, for me, the whole deal with NSA and Snowden, the guy's a hero. Thank God why are these people doing this? That's another rabbit trail. I could spend an hour on it. I got to move on. Shut up. Okay, thank you. Am I disciplined or what? So anyway, Snowden was, no, just joking. So look, so here's the line. This is what we did. We took Kelsey Stones and we went, well, Kelsey doesn't know about Mount Hermon, but we do, right? So we extended the line further. All right, here's Mount Hermon, and I talked about this last night. Here's Baalbek up here. Baalbek is this huge place in Lebanon where the 3 largest stones called the trilithon have been hewn. Now, I have colleagues, well, LA slaves did it over 100 years. Ting, 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 ting. 100 years building these stones. Ting, 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 ting. I just don't buy that. And then they show these 2 wheels on the end of the stone, these 2 huge wheels. How do you lift the stone to put it on the wheel? And how is it? Just show me, okay? If I was a millionaire, and I really mean this, if I had oodles of money, oh, Father, please, what I would do is I would construct the L.A. Marzulli Nephilim Challenge. Number 1. What do they win, Bob? Bring them out. And what I would do, I got to stop it. Please forgive me. Please, I'm getting silly already. So anyway, what I would do is I would take concrete and rebar and build a replica, roughly, of a 1,500-ton stone with the 2 supposed, marks, and I go, okay, guys, show me how they move it. Build the wheels, bring it over, let's lift this puppy with ropes and pulleys and everything else. You show me, and I just, I don't believe it. There's something else going on here. So Baalbek is in the north, but guess what's in the south? Gilgal Raphaim. And Gilgal Raphaim right there, this is 47.5 miles from the line, 47.5 miles from Baalbek. What does it mean? We have no idea. Only that we find it real interesting at these 2 major sites, Baalbek in the north, Baal worship, right? Baal. And Gilgal Raphaim, right? the Rephaim, one of the Nephilim tribes, 47.5 miles. I have now come to call this area Nephilim Central, right next to Mount Hermon, where the 200 Watcher angels descended. This is huge. Notice where Damascus is. It's huge, no pun intended. And so everything's spread out from there. And stuff is going on. And I find that that line, we were hoping that it would get close to Mount Hermon. It is close to Mount Hermon. It's only a few miles away. But it splits Bilbak and Gilgal Raphaim. It's certainly not a coincidence. Look at that again. And, if I gave you, let's say you're back 3,000 years, and I go, hey guys, can you draw a straight line? Here's some string. See what I mean? You look at that and you go, how, what, who? And it's precise. It splits the center trilithon dead center. Some outside agency, which is incredibly smart, the fallen cherub, right, the Dark Lord, has the power because he's what? The prince of the power of the air. So it fits with our paradigm. Because why? We're supernaturalists. Why are we supernaturalists? Because Paul warns us in Ephesians, right, that we war against what? Principalities, archons, rulers of wickedness in the heavenlies. Hello? That's where we are. And I say hello for myself too. Hello, Marzulli. Wake up. This is what's going on now. It's happened in antiquity, and it's going on right in front of us. So folks, tell your friends. It's time to wake up people that this war in the heavenlies has not only been going on in antiquity, but it's now starting to spill over into our dimension. And I talked about that with the UFO stuff last night. I had people come up showing me, we took this picture last week. It's like, okay, somebody else took this picture last week. Got on my iPhone. Here, look at these. It's amazing, and it's happening more and more. Lights in the sky. People don't know what it is. Let's move on. Rabbit trail. Peru. We were able to remove the hair from this guy last time we were down there, and he only had one parietal plate, not a hint of a sagittal suture. The sagittal suture goes from the frontal plate here, and it goes back and splits the two plates, which are known as the parietal plates. So that parietal suture should be there in a normal human being, and it's not. Not even a hint of it, not even a trace of it. And of course, this stymies the anthropologist and the archaeologist, and well, it should. Why they're not beating a door down to Peru is beyond me. I don't get it. I mean, I'm mystified by it. So let's move on. Here's a normal human skull on the right, an Inca human skull, and this guy here, of course, is a Paracas skull, much larger. Some people want to say that this is the result of cradle headboarding, and I understand what cradle headboarding is. And cradle headboarding is this: when you tie material to a child's skull and you shape the head. But shaping the skull is not going to create a greater cranial capacity in the inside of the skull. It's still going to have the same amount of space in the skull as a normal human skull. Guess what? The ones in Paracas are 25 to 30% greater in capacity than a normal human skull. I'm not making this up. We've had it verified. Aaron Junkins and Amatrell Nephilim 2 is writing up a paper. We spent hours measuring and looking at all the skulls. So something is going on. And it begs the question, why does a culture get up on a Monday morning and go, I think I'm going to make my son have a cone head. That's what I want my boy to be. Yes, sir. Come here, Freddie. You're going to be a cone head when you grow up. It's like, what? Right? You get what I mean? Why did I use that voice? That was text. They wouldn't. My wife's laughing, I know. This is Judd Burton going, huh? In front of the case in Paracas. We'll be seeing this on the tour for those of you who are coming. And it's why it's macabre and grisly. About 6 of these skulls are not cradle headboarded. And we believe that they're the real thing. Plus, what is red hair doing in Peru? Red hair shouldn't be there. And it is. And here we are at the Museum of Anthropology, which, by the way, we'll be going in when we go down there again. They just created this new exhibit showing the Paracas skulls and the people of Paracas. It is absolutely fantastic. It rivals anything we have here or in Europe. I mean, it's really amazing. We were just blown away. But it's the party line. They have, well, this skull was, cradle headboarded this way, and this one was done this way. Okay, I get it. But how do you explain the one parietal plate on the skull on the end? And for whatever reason, that skull is there. The other skulls, cradle headboarding, I get it. But the skull on the very end, there's I think 5 of them. Number 5 on the end, and we'll see this in May, we're going down. The skull on the end is elongated and only has one parietal plate. So here at the museum, you'll notice that the Darwinian paradigm is alive and well. So here we have the idiot, chimpanzee who somehow decides, instead of dragging his knuckles, right, and he gets up and he starts running. Hey, this is really cool, right? And then over a period of like a gazillion years, somehow he starts straightening up, and pretty soon he's got a gut out to here in a big, a Slurpee thing walking around going, yeah, it's great being a human being, isn't it? So, I mean, how does this happen? And how does the deoxyribonucleic double helix of life, how does that, right, the DNA, how does these mutations somehow magically trigger, and why can't the evolutionists just give me one example in modernity? Some bird that's growing, a lizard limb or something. Just give me one, please. Just one example. Surely there'd be something out there with the thousands of species that we have that would be changing magically into something else. A lizard suddenly, look, the lizard's growing wings. Wow, right? It's not there. Hummingbirds beget hummingbirds. Humpback whales beget humpback whales. Penguins, don't beget elephants. It doesn't work that way. They know because of the code. And the code reproduces the same thing over and over and over and over again. Because it was put there by you-know-who. Yeshua, who created everything, and nothing that was made without him, period. And that's what we believe. Why do people have such a hard time with that? Where the Darwinists going, well, billions of years in the primordial slime with lightning. Where did lightning come from? Where did the primordial slime come from? I mean, it's such a bankrupt theory. Where did the first self-replicating molecule come from? Okay, I'll shut up. Thank you. Let's move on. This is Senior Juan. See, was I good? Do I get a round of applause for that? Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. This is Senior Juan. In the background is the Chongos necropolis. You see how bleak it is? I mean, it's a weird place, and we will be going there. That's the Chongos necropolis. No. What? You're going to hand me something? No, not now, my dear. I'm speaking. No secret notes. Dear L.A. Okay. On the ground, you will notice these pots. This is from the Wakaros, the grave robbers. The grave robbers come in with these long steel poles, metal poles like rebar, and they go like this in the sand, and they work them down until they hear something, and that's where they know where a grave is. They also look out over the terrain, and anything has a slight indentation, that's where they dig. So the skulls that we showed you came from the Chongos necropolis. When I was out there about a month ago, we were out there on January 8th, back there for 3 weeks. When I was out there, I asked one of the Wakaros, he told me a very interesting story. About 15 years ago, he was walking on the mountains, those in the background, and he came on a lost, like not a city, but like ruins. And he was prodding around, and these people had like rooms that would go underneath, and apparently there was a giant skeleton there. Now, he had no idea I was interested in the Nephilim of the giants. He's just a Wakaro that was there to show us some things and to go back to the site where we found that one I showed you with the red hair. That's all he was there for, and he told us the story. So, we just keep hearing things and hearing things. There's a site in Ecuador, which I don't have pictures of now, but I'll probably show it in the next book. I'm working on getting them. And these guys are out in the middle of nowhere at like 12,000 feet. Apparently it's the most dangerous jungle in South America. I mean, it really is like the really Indiana Jones thing. I don't want to go there. And these guys, apparently like hardened explorers go into this place, and some of them never come out. And the natives, with the Karari darts, it's the whole thing. It's like, I mean, it's the whole Tarzan movie thing. I'm not going. That's just, sorry. Dun, 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 you can go. I'll stay here and eat my snow cone. Anyway, so, really bad. But they found the remains of this pyramid, and the stones shaped are exactly very similar to what was in Cusco, Peru, which is just right below Ecuador. And guess what? Guess what? They found huge hammerheads. And guess what? You know how big the hammerheads were? From here to here, as long as my forearm to my fingers. Huge hammerheads. So let me get this straight. A 5'6" little Inca guy, right, running around with like a 30-pound hammerhead. How many is going to swing that, twice? Oh, time for a lunch break. No way. This is, and this site has been raided. It's just been discovered, and already it's being raided. And the Ecuadorian archaeologists and the army were supposed to go out there and do a survey. So that's just a report from sort of the front lines. So these are all bits of pottery. These are bits of bones. The graveyard has been looted for the last 500 years because gold and silver and tapestries are found, and that's why the Wakaros go. Yes, you can take pictures, but not where I tell you when you can't, okay? And that's Brian Forrester, this area, and Senior One in the background. This is the area where the baby skull was found, as well as the one with the red hair that we told you about with only one parietal plate. Senior Juan believes that if we go down 25, 30 feet, the Paracas royalty will be there because they stacked them. And that's what he thinks. Now, we're working with an archaeologist, Aaron Judkins, and we're trying to get permits to dig in Chongos. This area has not been explored since 1928. Why? Anyway, this is the baby skull. No more video from here on out. No more pictures from here on out, please. No more live streaming from here on out. You with that camera. Security, man in aisle 4. Grab him. Okay, so this is what is known as, we call the baby skull. Notice the color of the tapestries. And Senior Juan, the curator of the museum, allowed us to unwrap it, and this is what we found. The hair is reddish blonde. That's what it looks like before it was uncovered. There it is now. That's not supposed to be there. We had a dentist come, a Peruvian dentist, who looked at the dentition. It's about 22 months old, according to him. The picture, you can see the hands. The skull is incredibly elongated. We believe, now it had a parietal suture. So, once again, our theory is like, well, okay, genetic manipulation, we don't know what we're looking at, but we don't believe this one was cradle headboard. Absolutely not. There's the Chongo skull. There's the baby skull. Okay, let's, you can turn the videos back on. Videos on. 3, 2, 1, and rolling. There's the Chongo skull, another shot of a Chongo skull. This is a place called Waitara. The Catholics come in, and they're really weird, with all due respect to Catholics, and many of our Catholic brothers and sisters are born again and spirit-filled, but many, many are not. When you go down to Peru, they have this very strange, odd mix of Catholicism and paganism, and they blend the two. And it's really weird. They'll go to Mass on Sunday and have the shaman come over for, Sunday brunch. It's the way they work. So this church is built on a very ancient megalithic site. It's about 7,000 feet up in the Andes and in the middle of nowhere. And Brian, of course, found this place and got us there. And when you look at this, are you in Peru or are you in Egypt? Where are you? Look at the stones from here down. That's the original. This, what I lovingly refer to as Inca slop, with all due respect, has nothing to do with the precision of the stonework that's below. Now, the Catholic Church, in the inside of the church, where these little niches are, they put Mary and Joseph and the whole crew, little idols. It's not what this was. I believe this is part of an ancient machine. The stones are andesite, quarried from miles away. The stones are joined without mortar. Each stone is completely different. There's no two stones alike. And they'll do things like just make a little curve like this. Go talk to your friendly stonemason. How do you do this with a copper chisel, even if it's hardened with arsenic? How do you do that? In antiquity, thousands of years ago. In this, we saw these mummies. And again, I've had different people with different perspectives on it. Look at the head here. Okay? Some people want to tell us that that's hydrocephalic disease, but we don't think it is, because hydrocephalia balloons the head out like this, like a beach ball. These are cone heads. Something's going on here. And this was displayed in the museum. This particular museum, when we got there, all the lights were off. The curator was basically no heat, sleeping with sort of a jacket on his front desk. And, we paid our 5 solaces or whatever and went in and looked at what was there, and we were just kind of blown away. And we said, what else do you have? He goes, we've got crates and boxes and all sorts of stuff and mummies here, and the public never gets to see this stuff. And it just sits, and we can't look at it, you can't look at it, but what is on display at least sort of tips their hand. And okay, there's another shot of what this thing looks like up close, frontal view. Okay, I need you to turn stuff off again. LA's being really difficult here. I'm not going to do what he says. I'm going to sneak a picture and put it on Facebook. That's what I'm going to do. Yeah, we'll make millions, see? Okay, I want you to look at this head here, okay? All right, this is in Peru, a place called Waitara. Now look at this, and this is my intellectual property. I discovered it. Where is that? Where was that taken? Where was that taken? Look at the child here. All cameras off. I'm looking. Hey, you. I'm just joking. Look at the head here. Look at this head here. Look at the way the skull goes back like that. That's not normal. Peru? Ecuador? How about Catalina Island? Yeah, I knew you guys would do that, especially here in California. Right out here in Catalina Island. Yep. And these pictures have been laying. This picture was taken around 1928. There's an amateur archaeologist called Ralph Glidden who was doing primitive archaeological digs out on the island. He's a little more than a grave robber, just digging these things up. Give me a second. Thank you. He kept sketchy records. He would tomb number 73, 4 arrowheads, 2 beads, 4 bowls, 3 skeletons. Tomb number 82. And so all of a sudden he talks about, we saw the bones of an enormous human being well over 8 foot. That's all he says. There's no pictures, there's no nothing. But this stuff was in the newspapers in L.A. The L.A. Times listed it. And when you talk to the anthropologists, which I have, they assure me that none of this stuff existed on Catalina. It was all Barnum and Bailey. I have one question. Where is the skeleton and why can't we see it? What happened to it? It's not anywhere. We don't know. The High Museum was swallowed up by the Smithsonian. So the answer is really simple. It's gone. But the picture isn't. The picture was, I was allowed to go in and look at the Glidden collection, Ralph Glidden collection. I was there for 10 hours by myself with the curator looking at boxes of photographs, everything he had. Boxes, photographs, journals, letters, everything. I got to look at and photograph stuff. I found 4 or 5 objects. This is one of them, which I'm sharing you. You're the first people to see it. It'll be on Alma Trail number 2, which won't be available for several months. And again, what are they doing in Catalina? And this is why I'm on the trail, because once again, it doesn't prove the theory, but it's another step that some outside agency is messing with the genome. And we have a right to know, especially if it proves the biblical worldview. This is why the Nephilim is so important. That if a Nephilim really did come over here, are there traces of it? Someone came up to me today and said, "L.A., I believe what you're saying, but where's the photographic evidence?" I said, well, I'll tip my hand. And I showed him this, and I showed him another picture, which I'll show you guys in a little bit. So now we get back over to Cusco. And remember I talked about the stones? Here we've got polygonal-shaped stones, okay? No mortar. Look at this little curve. Whee! Why do they do it? Because they can do it. Some of these boulders here, these are the light ones, a couple of tons. The ones in Sacsayhuaman, 80 tons, 100 tons, and you'll see why. Look at that. Stonemasons, if you're any out there, take a look at that. How would you do it? How would you do it? How would you fit the stones together? It's so playful, and there's not a cartouche or a hieroglyph or anything on them at all. There's nothing. The builders left no, Kilroy was here. It doesn't exist. What we do know is that, and when you look at a line like this right here, right? When you look at that line, we know that it actually goes through the entire stone. It's not just dressing in the front and then, the angle stops and it doesn't go through. That angle is polished and it goes through the entire stone. And that's how they link up. I mean, you want to talk about a jigsaw puzzle, and the fits are perfect. Hello, folks. We call this, I labeled it Nephilim architecture, because that's what I think it is. Above it is the Inca trying to, we got some stones, let's try to rebuild the wall. Okay, where's this one go? I don't know. Well, it might go here. All right, throw some mortar in. Dink, 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 dink. And why archaeologists and anthropologists can't see that is beyond Brian and myself and others in the field who look at this stuff. And the reason why they can't is because it doesn't fit the paradigm. It doesn't fit this progression of people coming over from the Berengian landmass at the end of the last ice age and becoming, chasing megafauna with spears like Ungawa, and then settling in Peru and creating these things. No, what we see is exactly the opposite. We see that the lower casing stones are much more complex. The building is finer designed. The joints are incredible. Here's Inca and here's the Spanish. We see exactly the opposite. We see that the bottom story of stones is the best. The architecture is the best. The stonework is superior in every way to the preceding cultures. There's the Inca above, small indigenous stones, and here's the Spanish. These stones are andesite. They're quarried from 40 to 50 miles away. This is in Cusco, 12,000 feet above sea level. How do you move them? The Inca didn't have the wheel. I'll tip my hand to you. We're interviewing Robert Salas in Watchers 8. We're trying to create a correlate between what happened in antiquity, which is what is happening in modernity. And we've been able to do that. Why? Because Robert Salas has a piece of information that's incredible. He was stationed at a nuclear missile site. I'm not sure where it was located. He's gone on the record, so he's coming on the record with us in a few weeks to tell about his story. And there was a UFO that was over the missile silos, and it shut the silos down, okay? But get this, the blast doors are made of solid concrete reinforced with rebar. They weigh 3 tons each. When Salas went out to inspect the missiles, all the blast doors had been lifted off, get this, lifted off their tracks and placed to the side of the silo. Yeah, so what have we done with that? We've established, is it conclusive? Of course it's not. But what it does is it shows that, wait a minute, these entities are doing the same thing in modernity that they might have done in antiquity. Fallen angel technology. Now, if you were a bunch of New Agers and I said that, you'd look at me and, walk out of the room. But I can say it here because this is our paradigm, and this is what we believe, and this is what I believe. This is like, and remember, when we talk about fallen angelic hosts, we're not talking about, these little guys with, red suits and horns and pitchforks. It's not what we're looking at. These are incredibly intelligent super scientists. Okay, let's move on. There's another wall in Cusco. Again, there's not one stone there, but it's the same. No mortar. And this is what I mean by, there's a sign there that tells us this is where the big gold idol sat. No, it didn't. In my humble opinion, you see this thing, see the slots, see the holes? The night before we went there, the Lord gave me a dream. And the dream continued, but in the dream, superimposed in every dream, every scene, was this lentil right here above the door with these holes in it. And I'm going, Lord, I have no idea what this means. Why are you showing me? Why are you showing me this? And then, 6 hours later, I'm standing in front of the thing going, you have got to be kidding me. That was a prophetic dream by the Holy Spirit given to me to give me a heads up. This is not, and notice the way the back has been blown out. Look at the slots here. Look at we don't know what it was. We theorize that it was some sort of a highly complex machine with moving parts. Plates, we don't know. But it's not there anymore. Whatever it was, it's long gone, long gone. There's no way we can ever find out what it was. But was it a part of a temple? No. Something moved in and out. Something did something. We have no idea. I believe it was part of a grid that either was used to energize the planet on some level, transport people. I don't know. I'm just theorizing, just conjecturing. It's okay to think, isn't it, or conjecture. We don't know. Was this thing built to hold an idol? No way. Not in my opinion. Sorry. I don't buy it for a minute. This is Sacsayhuaman. And you'll look at the megalithic stones. That big one there is about 100 tons. And you'll notice the joints. Who gets up on a Monday morning and does this? Seriously. Again, let's take the L.A. Marzulli Nephilim challenge, okay? Let's get a bunch of stonemasons and a bunch of andesite stones. Oh, if I had the money, I'd film this. Are you kidding me? Put up a little tent city for these guys. Okay, guys, we want a wall. Go for it. And watch them go. Ding, 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 ding. Sorry, don't buy it. Look at this. Let's give them some, 80 tonners, right? Let's look at that wall. Are you kidding me? How do you do that? And, the anthropologist, with all due respect, will say, well, the technology's been lost to us, L.A., but it doesn't mean that mankind didn't do it. Well, here we are in the 21st century, and we can't duplicate it. So you tell me, if it was so, why is it that the technology is lost and we don't know what it is? Where did it come from, and why can't we duplicate it today? Moving on. This is a place called Ollantaytambo. It's all that's left of the same type of a structure. And you'll notice here, the only thing left is these steps which go up and down. Jacob's ladder, maybe? That's what I thought. And below is the Inca, and on top is the finer stonework. This is looking at the remains of a temple, something, or whatever it was. Something happened there. The stones were thrown down by some great cataclysm, and many of them are down below in the valley below here. The stones have been broken. Whatever this thing was, this is all that remains of it. And this is on top of a hill, and the quarry is across the valley. So once again, these stones weigh tons and tons and tons each. They are huge. You can see where Brian is. How were they moved, and why? And what was this place? And then why do this? I mean, seriously, I work with wood. I used to work with wood a lot. I have a reverence for wood, and I know I could make this joint, and I could do it like in an afternoon. It wouldn't be that hard to do with wood. But I would be, I would be very careful with routers and everything else, and I'd be using wood, pine, and I could do that. But when you factor in stone, it's a whole different deal. These are just shots. We were out in the jungles of Peru, and a native said, I know where the skulls are. We were traipsed around there for hours, basically, and found the cave where the kids said that the skulls were. And we went in and we found some elongated skulls, one of them with 2 frontal plates instead of 1 frontal plate. There's Brian holding one of the skulls. Here's a shot of one of the skulls from Paracas. There's not a hint of a parietal suture. What we should see, called a sagittal suture, we should see a sagittal suture running like this, which separates the 2 parietal plates. It's not there, not even a hint of it. And when you look inside the skull, there's not a hint of it in the inside of the skull either. So the skull, it hasn't fused over age. Something is going on here. Here's a side shot of another skull. This is the one that we cast. This is the DNA testing results which came out. It went viral a couple of weeks ago on the web. Brian released it, and this is what it says. This is from a geneticist whom I have spoken to. Whatever the sample labeled 3A has come from, it had mitochondrial DNA with mutations unknown in any human, primate, or animal known so far. The data is very sketchy, though, and a lot of sequencing still needs to be done to recover the complete mitochondrial DNA sequence. But a few fragments I was able to sequence from this sample 3A indicate that if these mutations will hold, we are dealing with a new human-like creature, very distant from Homo sapiens, Neanderthals, and Denisovans. I am not sure it will even fit into the known evolutionary tree. The question is, if they were so different, they could not interbreed with humans. Breeding within their small population, they may have degenerated due to inbreeding. That would explain buried children. They were either low or not viable. So that's the first hardcore scientific evidence which we have allegedly from these skulls. That the mitochondrial DNA from the mother does not match any known base pairs, which once again fits our paradigm that whatever these are not human beings as we know them. So Yeshua warns us, as it was in the days of Noah, so will be at the coming of the Son of Man. Are we in the days that are likened to Noah? The theory is simply this. This is from the book of Enoch. The giants who are produced from spirits in the flesh shall be called evil spirits upon the earth, i.e. demons, in my opinion. Evil spirits have proceeded from their bodies because they are born from men and from the holy watchers. We're talking about the Nephilim, is their beginning and primal origin. And the spirits of the giants afflict, oppress, attack, do battle, and work destruction on the earth. And these spirits shall rise up against the children of men and against the women because they have proceeded from them. Okay? And he says to the watchers, he's talking to Enoch, you shall have no peace. You see something that you don't want to see? That's a great thing to have in your quiver. You shall have no peace. How many people have the peace of the Holy Spirit in their lives right now in this room? How many people know what it's like when the Lord takes that peace away for whatever reason? Because we walk out from under the umbrella of protection. No picnic, no fun, is it? Okay? When you say to an angelic being, you shall have no peace, or something that you come up against, or that you feel, the Lord rebuke you. We are strong in the Lord and in his might, right? You shall have no peace. The Lord rebuke you. Those are just arrows in our quiver, because if we're in the presence of anything like that, it's hard to remember your name. Seriously. Elmer Fudd? Let's move on. The warning. For as in the days before the flood, they were eating and drinking. Who's they? And we've all, other speakers have covered this, so I'm not going to get into it. They were eating, drinking, and marrying and giving in marriage till the day that Noah entered the ark. It's not human beings, because in my opinion, in the Genesis 6 account, when you go there, who is they? They are the sons of God. This is why this passage is so important to nail down and have our exegetical viewpoint correct. And I believe, and I know the other authors here and speakers who did a great job believe that these, the sons of God, are the fallen angelic host of heaven. Let's move on. The coming of the lawless one is according to the working of the fallen one with all power, signs, and lying wonders. That's from Paul warning us 2,000 years ago. Why don't we take this stuff seriously? When we read that passage, I'm not talking about, is there a demon under this flower pot here? Let's take a look. That's not what I'm talking about. But we know that the coming of the lawless one, and what are the signs? Wars, rumors, and wars, famines and pestilence, earthquakes in diverse places, troublesome times. We are in it. Remember I said last night, go back 6 or 7 years ago, my throat's going, this is going to be great. 6 or 7 years ago, there's no wars in the Middle East. There's no Arab Spring going on. There's no war in Syria. Iran's not trying to make the bomb. There's no 7-point earthquake, which will become the new normal. We have a 9.0 in Haiti. Whoa, jump back. Fukushima's not existing. The fish and animal stuff isn't going on. Come on. We need to grasp and understand the times that we're living. I know it's late and you guys are saturated, but we need to be on fire because this stuff isn't going away. It's not, you're not going to wake up tomorrow morning and go, God's got a plan for your life and everything's just going to be fine. I don't see that. With all due respect to those guys on TV who are selling that stuff, it's like, look, as a watchman, our job, my job, is to wake up and exhort and tell people and warn, like, hey guys, we're headed to the cliff. Time to prepare. Let's move on. Big rabbit trail. I believe the fallen one has been trying to manipulate the genome in order to create man in his own image. I got to really get going. Look at this skull. This is called Waki. It stood about this tall. You think that's normal? I don't. Let me just show you some things. Look at this one with the suture going and splitting the two frontal plates. That's not supposed to be there. That frontal plate's supposed to be intact. It's not supposed to have a suture in it. The suture goes up like this, and then the sagittal suture goes back. These skulls are anomalous. There's a Chongo skull. No sagittal suture. So why am I... Oh, wait, this is really gruesome. I don't know why you're showing us all this. Because what it does, in my opinion, is it slams dunk the idea that the Nephilim were here and also afterwards, and it's like the days of Noah, and it shows us what the end times will be. Like the days of Noah, there's a breeding program going on. Remember I said last night? The fallen one is trying to create man in his own image. No sagittal suture. This is what some of these guys, according to Mark LaPlume, may have looked like. He paints them a little too benevolent for my taste. I'm working with another artist not to manipulate it, but let's make them a little more, It happened here in the Americas. Oh, we need some sound, guys? Okay, watch this. This is Robert Mirabal, Native American Indian. Listen to what he's talking about, and you tell me what he's saying. Long ago, when the sky people came. Listen to what he's saying, and you tell me what this echoes. Anything? Sound? We should be getting something. Here's Robert. You're not getting any sound, are you? No sound here. Well, let me just explain it. What happens here is, and I'm going to fast forward it, he's talking about, what am I looking at? Oh.
The men would go hunting in the mountains for deer or elk.
Thank you.
While the women would prepare offerings to honor these giants.
Just listen to this. Listen to what he says right here.
And a long time ago, they say there were giants that roamed the land. They came from the sky, fell in love with the sons and daughters of the...
A long time ago, there were giants in the land. They came from the sky and they fell in love with the sons and daughters of men. What is that? What is that? That's Genesis 6. Where is that from? Our Bible. These guys are Native Americans. It's in their oral tradition. It's there. This is what just blows me away. And you talk to the anthropologists and they dismiss the oral tradition as mythos. No, it's not, with all due respect. It's not mythos. Their oral tradition is just as valid as our oral traditions. These people have handed these stories down. I have talked to chiefs. I have talked to elderesses and elders. They have been told these stories, and it's been handed down over hundreds of years. This is their story. And what are they saying? They're telling us that there were giants in the land. Listen to what it says.
earth. They had the ability to read your mind and foresee the future. The men would go hunting in the mountains for deer or elk, while the women would prepare offerings to honor these giants.
They're making offerings. Okay, I'm not going to show you the whole thing, but you get the deal. This is what they're reenacting. Giants in the land, in the mountains, and they could read your mind. They had supernatural powers. That's just one tribe. It's all over the United States, talking about war with giants. We had to clear the land from the giants. They were cannibal-eating, red-haired giants. Let's move on. Washington Herald, Seymour, Texas. Oil drillers claim to have found bones of a prehistoric giant 10 feet high. Okay, so the newspaper's lying because they're just trying to sell papers. Mexico City, the Department of Agriculture yesterday received from an agent on Tiburon Island the skeleton of a primitive man more than 10 feet tall. They're lying, they're trying to sell papers. Spokane Daily Chronicle, the skeleton of a prehistoric man of a large size has been found in a town 10 miles southeast, 15 feet in height. They're lying, they're trying to sell papers. A dispatch from Cassiopolis, I guess it's Michigan. The lower jaw is immense, and it goes on down here 11 feet tall. So they're trying to sell papers. They're just, the bones of a giant 10 feet in height were found near Lewisport. My conversation with a tenured professor about the bones, when I told her, I said, excuse me, with all due respect, men of letters, doctors and lawyers examined these skeletons 100 years ago and measured them at 9 feet. You know what her answer to me was? And I'm not making this up. Men of letters 100 years ago did not know how to measure. I swear to you. That's what I got. Why? It's like, did Jesus rise from the dead? You bet. Why? Because I believe it. Why do you believe it? Because I believe it. We have faith, but we also know in our hearts that he's risen from the dead because he's revealed himself to us. These guys, it's their religion, and they hold on to their paradigm as tenaciously as we hold on to ours. And anything that comes across their path which kind of ruffles it, ooh, men of letters didn't know how to measure. Okay, I need cameras off. Cameras off, video off, please. This is my find in Catalina. This is from Ralph Glidden. This is L.A. Marzulli donating a sizable contribution to the Catalina Museum, literally. 6 months of wrangling, and finally the doors opened up, and in I went and sat down in this room with a table with white paper, and they brought out boxes, all archival boxes, everything organized with files and names and photographs and plastic wrappings and the whole deal. Everything is cataloged. And I spent 10 hours there, like I said, and I showed you the first picture I found, which was pay dirt. If you're looking for something, you're going to find it. If you're not looking for what you're looking for, does that make any sense? You're not going to find it, right? And so if someone else can look at these pictures and it's not going to mean anything to them. To me, I just went, oh my gosh, you've got to be kidding me. It's this picture. All cameras off? Okay. This is Ralph Glidden sitting in a pit, recently excavated. He is 5 foot 8 inches tall. There is a skeleton here in situ. It's not a bone pile. The skeleton has been placed in the grave, and it's exactly the same position it was placed in, and Ralph Glidden has uncovered it. What I did is I went on my blog, didn't show the picture. I said, I'm looking for guys with computer programs who can extrapolate the heights of 2 different individuals. About 5 or 6 people emailed me back. 4 of those people responded. I sent the picture to them. This is what we found. And it's kind of hard to read, but this is what we did. This is just one guy. We take Ralph Glidden at 5 feet 8. We bring him out of the picture and see we can Photoshop it now. 5 foot 8, and we know this is what he looks like. We take the skeleton and we stand it. That's an 8.5 footer in front of Glidden. 2 other people, blind study, they did not know I was doing this. One guy put it at 9 feet, the other guy put it at 8 feet. So it's within 8 and 9 feet. I'll use the 8.5 foot because it's the average, and that's what I think it is. First, real, hardcore, photographic proof of an 8.5 footer found out on Catalina. And what's cool is Glidden in his journal says, we found a skeleton on San Miguel, which was 8.5 feet tall. The picture was taken in Catalina, but if there's one in San Miguel, why not Catalina? And because Glidden kept really sloppy records and very incomplete, we don't know. But the back of the photo says Catalina. We're not even sure. The question is, where is this guy? What happened to it? Why can't we see it? Surely a museum would go, wow, an 8.5 footer, that's really cool. We'll put that up and charge everybody $1 to see it. Yeah, that's great. It's not there, it's gone. So that's hardcore physical proof, in my opinion, of an 8.5 footer found out on Catalina Island. Let's move on. So there's the red hair from Paracas. This is the implant which we went last night, and I showed you this, right? Did I show you this graph yet? Did I show you this? No? Okay, real quick. This is the implant from last night, okay? This is the red hair from Paracas, all right? Red hair from Paracas, implant. There's a man who was abducted and forced to have sex with a hybrid being with silver whitish hair. It was a female. During the forced intercourse, he had a presence of mind to fight back. In fighting back, there was hair left on him from this being. So we have a graph. We put 4 hairs in a machine called Raman spectroscopy, which measures and puts on a graph the molecular composition of whatever you're putting in. In this case, it was hair. So we have a human hair, which is, where's human? Why can't I find it? Here's our control sample right here, okay? So we see a normal human hair comes into the graph like this, comes up and just kind of falls like this, right? The green hair is a dyed hair, dyed human hair. We see it comes way down here and goes up and sort of spikes out and goes out. This is what blew us away. And is it proof of a Nephilim? No. Once again, it's not conclusive proof. But it's another hardcore scientific study that we did and paid for, which proves at least that there may be a correlation between what happened in antiquity and what is going on in modernity. And it is this. Here is the hybrid red-haired mummy hair, right? Right here. The dark blue. And here is the hybrid hair from the white hair from the alien that was, the hybrid being that was female that the guy had a sample of the hair from, okay? They start in the same place. Look at the way the slope of the graph is. Look how almost identical it is. And we just about fell out of our chairs. Because in our opinion, and in the opinion of them, he's writing up a report for Alma Trail 2. This wasn't an Alma Trail 1, but it will be an Alma Trail 2. And in our opinion, it creates a link between this guy here, which is, thousands of years ago in Machongo's necropolis, and what's happening here in modernity with someone who's been abducted and forced to have sex. What does that sound like? It's Genesis 6 screaming at us, isn't it? In my opinion. And here's hardcore physical evidence. Is it conclusive? No, not yet, but we're getting closer and closer and closer as we move forward. So we believe that there was a grid system, and you've seen some of these, this vast stonework, megalithic stonework, And we believe the grid system connected all points to the planet. And we believe that the fallen one did this, and it enslaved the human race. And so when God sent the flood, it was universal. And he needed to make it universal because he needed to wipe this grid out. Otherwise, human beings would be enslaved. The problem is Jesus says it's in the days of Noah, so it will be when the Son of Man returns. The grid is back, in our opinion, and we helped build it, which is unbelievable. So there's the grid. There's Sacsayhuaman, the ancient grid. He causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, receive a mark on their right hand or on their foreheads, that no man may buy or sell except the one who has the mark. We all know about this. See this little implant right here? I believe these are prototypes to the mark of the beast. I believe when they show up, they will have these implants, and they will say, the so-called extraterrestrials will say, we created all life on this planet, we genetically manipulated you, we created the early societies on the planet, and now at this critical juncture in human history, we are back to usher mankind into a time of peace, prosperity, and knowledge. We know from Scripture that you won't be able to buy, sell, or trade without the mark. We also know from Scripture that anyone who takes the mark winds up in the lake of fire. Any grace and mercy there? Is there a shred of grace and mercy there? No, there is not. Where there's grace and mercy every place else in the Bible for the most vile sinners on the planet, and yet you take the mark, you're hosed, basically. You wind up in the lake of fire. Something's going on with the mark. We also know that in those days, men and women will seek death and not find it. Is that allegory? No. I believe this mark will extend the life, just like the days of Noah. The lifespan may be 500 years or older. People will be flying off the... What is Elysium, right? How many people saw that movie? Right? I saw part of it and turned it off, but you're just like, oh, not again. But there's one thing where, the woman has cancer and she goes in the machine and she's like, and they all live like hundreds of years, blah, blah, blah. It's a setup. We're being, think of the movies that we see. The X-Men is a perfect example of that. These hybrid beings, these chimeras. Watch Katy Perry's E.T. video. I just want to close with this, that we've not been given a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. All right? The last couple of days, we've really plowed and looked at some very deep things in a field with some hidden secrets that most of you have never even, looked at. And a lot of you really don't want to look at. And who does? It's unsettling. But we know from Scripture, we know the end of the story. We know that he is coming. And when he comes with the armies of heaven, by the breath of his mouth, he will destroy those who are waiting, according to one of the Psalms. I think it's Psalm 2 or 3. And he'll destroy those kings of the earth who are assembled. We know that. That's what's going to happen. So all this is a warning that we are in what I believe are the last days, leading up to the time of the tribulation. My prayer is that we get taken out of here sooner than later, because it's getting really crazy. In the meantime, put on your armor of God every night, and I mean that. Put on the armor of God every night or in the morning or whenever. Put on the armor. Know what it is. Read Ephesians 6. Put on that armor. Walk around. Get bold. Start to tell people about this stuff. All the resources on the tables, man. I mean, that's why we write books and do DVDs. Give them to your friends. Wake them up. So you don't have to say anything. Just hand them a DVD. Hey, check this out. Or the book or whatever. So I want to just pray. And then what I want to do is just take a couple of minutes and just see if there's been a lot going on in this room. And what I want you to do is I want you to be interactive. And I know this is always weird when people ask that. If you don't feel like doing it, you don't have to do it. But try to do it. Pray with the person next to you. Okay? And if you're alone or whatever, then try to get in a group with in front of you. It doesn't have to be a long-winded prayer. Just pray that the Lord would seal in our hearts the things that we're supposed to have, and the things that we're not supposed to have, we're not supposed to have. We won't take out of this room. You know what I mean? So just take a minute and just pray amongst yourselves. And then I want to just, after that, I just want to sit, and I'll sort of, run it from here because I got the mic. But let's just see if the Holy Spirit has anything to say to us. And remember, here's my caveat. The Holy Spirit will not force you to do anything. It will not be about you, or what you've done, or what you've seen, or you and me have seen or done, or anything else. It will not be something like, thus save the Lord. It will be usually for the entire body, and a lot of times it'll just show and praise either Jesus or the Father. That's what it will do. That's what he will point to. So if you think you have a word and it's about something you've done, sit on it, because it probably isn't, it's probably just for you type of thing, okay? If someone has a vision and you're not sure what it is, don't be afraid to stand up. And, with a group like this, who knows what he'll do. So let's pray. So, Father, we come before you and we thank you for this time. And we just thank you, Lord, for your goodness and the presence of the Spirit right now. Go in the Spirit.